I was 40 years old at the time, and I was a manager at a company. I was making about $10 million a year. I lived with my wife, who is a housewife, my 17-year-old daughter, and my 6-year-old son. We were high school classmates, and we had been dating since we were 17 years old. We had our first daughter right away. She was really cute with her little arms and legs. After that, my wife was busy raising our child, and it was quite hectic. At the time, I had my doubts, but my daughter was really cute, so I thought it would be okay to just have one more child. When our daughter was 10 years old, my wife began to push me hard, and we had a son. I was naturally overjoyed, and after that, I was able to adjust my work. I thought I was doing a good job of housework, childcare, and providing for my family. However, when our son turned 3 years old, my wife's attitude towards our daughter started to change. She was preoccupied with our son and did not pay attention to our daughter at all. Even when my daughter got her period, she would get annoyed and irritated. I wish I had done my research at the time, but my wife and I just kept arguing. I was an only child and had lost both parents, so I shamelessly talked to a woman who worked for me, and she taught me a lot of things to help me get over it. It never occurred to me that my wife would have an affair or anything like that, but I wondered day in and day out if she was unhappy with me or my daughter. If she continued like that, there was no way my daughter would think well of my wife. Gradually, my daughter began to only talk to me. I couldn't even talk to our son, whom I adored so much. I didn't know what was going on, but I was struggling to keep the family together. My son didn't want to talk to me either. I spent too much time at work, thinking I was trying to protect my family. Then last year, suddenly, "I need to talk to you about something important, so I need you to take the day off in secret from your wife and son," my daughter said this to me. By that time, I was having almost no conversations with anyone but my daughter. I immediately agreed, thinking that she was going to tell me that we should get a divorce. What my daughter said was very embarrassing and something I would never allow her to say as a parent. "That woman is cheating on you with her coworker." And when I heard the name she gave me, my eyes went blank. The man who is supposed to be my confidant is having an affair with my wife. How could I, a pathetic man, have such a story come out of the blue from my daughter? "Are you sure it's not a mistake?" I was in denial, but my daughter was crying right in front of me. "I can't forgive this for doing this to you, Dad," she said to me. I was hoping my daughter was wrong. I'm hoping she's mistaken, but I've decided to use a private investigator. I'm connected to that side of the business. I decided to ask an investigator who works at the company I work for to help me. I told him to see what was going on over a month's time. I asked for him to keep an eye on all weekdays. The person from the agency told me that the amount of money would be charged to me on the basis of the number of days of the week, etc. I asked him regardless of that. However, I did not care. I asked him to do it after 5 p.m. because I see my subordinates at work every day. The result was insane. Whenever my wife said she was going out with her friends or went out for a sleepover, she would always go on a date with my subordinate. When I looked at the report of the investigation that the agency had conducted over a month, all I could do was laugh. Then I wondered why my daughter had found out, so I took her out to dinner and asked her again. She said it was because she had witnessed my wife inviting a subordinate into our home while I was flying around on a business trip a few months ago. My daughter was not forthcoming, but there was probably some physical intimacy involved. For the first time in my life, I wanted to hurt someone, and I decided to take revenge. I consulted a lawyer with whom I had a close relationship with, and I was thinking of ways to punish my wife. But I couldn't stand the idea of settling the case only with money. After much thought and consideration, I came up with an idea of having my subordinate marry my ex-wife. My subordinate has a wife and children, but if he loves my wife that much, I would feel sorry for his wife. If my wife and my subordinate got married, I wouldn't have to see her anymore, and my subordinate wouldn't be able to stay in the company. After that, he would only have to think about his children. And so, I carried out my plan. First, I told the wife of my subordinate what had happened. I shamefully asked her to help me. "I'll pay the legal fees, so please help me out," I asked her. She cried and said that she had no idea her husband was having a relationship with my wife, but she said she would cooperate with me after she calmed down. Then she told me, "I want to explain this to my parents, so please come with me." So I agreed and talked to her parents about how to handle the divorce. A few weeks have passed since then. We were all set and ready to go, and we caught them right after their secret. meeting at a hotel along the country road in the suburbs. When they saw our faces, they were screaming like crazy, and in the car, they were making excuses on the drive home, but I don't know what they think they can get away with now. After we got to my house, I showed them the report I had the agency make for me. They froze when they saw the report. I asked my wife for a divorce and $60,000 in alimony, and asked my subordinate for $10,000 in alimony. The subordinate's wife also asked for a divorce and $200,000 in alimony from her husband and $30,000 from my wife. Both of these amounts were far beyond the market rate, and if the case went to court, there was no way they would be granted. My subordinate said, "There's no way I can pay that. Please help me," and begged for my forgiveness. My wife was in a hurry to follow suit. So we told them we would relinquish custody of our kids if both of them agreed to remarry as soon as possible and would decrease their alimony payment. My subordinate's wife also said she would decrease it and that she would not go to court. However, both my wife and my subordinate refused to budge. I thought maybe they thought the alimony was still too high, but it wasn't that. "I don't want a divorce. It was a mistake. Please forgive me," they cried and begged for forgiveness. I couldn't understand it at all. Why would two people who love each other think that way about each other? My wife said, "My heart is with you. I'm only with him for his body," she pleaded with me. My subordinate said, "Please forgive me. It was just for fun," again and again. If they loved each other, this plan would go smoothly, but they told me that they did not love each other. I couldn't believe my wife anymore. I asked her, "How long has this been going on?" Both of them became silent as if they swallowed rocks. Then I thought about my son. Ever since he was born, my wife has been treating our daughter horribly. When I think about it, there's something that stuck with me. Why did she suddenly act like that after our son was born? Why did she suddenly care about our son so much? A possibility that had never occurred to me before came to mind. I said, "Is it okay if I get a DNA test for our son?" My wife went into a frenzy and said, "That child is yours!" She screamed this repeatedly. And then my wife went crazy. I called my wife's parents and told them what had happened and asked them to come over right away. My father-in-law arrived about 20 minutes later, left my wife with him, and asked him to watch my son and wife. I still remember the look on my father's face when I told him the truth. I think I could have done a better job of telling those guys, let alone my wife. Then we walked to my subordinate. He told us that the relationship had been going on for 10 years. At first, we just listened to each other's problems. I felt bad about it, but the relationship continued. "I am so sorry." And then he just cried. As I listened to his story, I remembered the image of my wife in a frenzy and wondered what I should have done. In the end, there was nothing more I could do that day. After the breakup, we decided to have a talk with a lawyer. The next day, I was allowed to take 4 days off from work and told them it was due to my wife's sudden illness. I was lounging on the sofa in the living room, not doing anything in the daytime, and before I knew it, my daughter was in the kitchen. My daughter, as best as she could, smiled at me. "I asked Grandpa to send me home. I'll cook dinner and we can eat together." She invited me to join her. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I couldn't stop crying. After I stopped crying, I apologized to my daughter. "I'm sorry for all the pain I've caused you, and for all the scars I've caused in your life. But my daughter said, "Dad, you were always trying your best to protect our family. If it was your fault, my feelings would have nowhere to go," she said to me. I hugged her and we cried together for a while. After a while, she stopped crying and suggested that I take a DNA test. "It's the hardest thing for me and my brother to be in limbo." I nodded my head. I got myself together, consulted a lawyer, and got samples of my daughter, my son, and my subordinate. My wife was still broken, so I got my kids back from my in-laws. And then, I told the company what had happened. I apologized for taking paid leave with false information, but my boss said, "It's true that your wife became suddenly ill, so you have nothing to apologize for," he said to me. I was really glad to be working for this boss. My subordinate never showed up at the office. I thought he would have been tough if he could come to work with impunity, but I knew he was not that kind of person. And then, a short time later, we got the results of the DNA test. My daughter and I were parent and child, but my son and I had a 0% parent-child relationship. It was like all the strength drained out of me. I couldn't communicate with my son well, but there, I still loved him. But now, I didn't feel like he was my son anymore. If it weren't for him, my daughter wouldn't have been treated the way she was. What were the last 6 years of our lives been? If my wife liked another man, why didn't she just leave me, remarry, and raise the son with him? The reason I didn't have a good relationship with that child is probably because he knew I wasn't his real father. That's what I thought. When I came home, thinking about what to do next, my daughter was waiting for me, not sleeping. Just by seeing my face, she said, "I guess the results weren't good." She gave me a sad smile. "It's just the two of us now, isn't it? What do we do now? How about we save up some money and go abroad? We can live together in the middle of nowhere," she said with a sad smile on her face. My daughter was also on the verge of breaking down. I was so preoccupied with my own pain that I did not think about my daughter. I didn't want to let my daughter down again. "Are you okay with it just being me and you?" I asked, and she said, "I already said it's going to be just the two of us." I could see in her smile that she was ready. I knew I was the only one who was not ready. The next day, I called my wife's parents' house to have an important talk with my wife and her affair partner. The son was not allowed to be there, so I asked my mother-in-law to watch him. My wife was not sure what was going on with her mental state, but I asked her to be there, and surprisingly, she agreed. At the meeting, I told her that considering the results of the tests and our past management, my daughter and I could no longer consider our son as family. I also apologized to the wife of my co-worker for everything that had happened. Except for the apology to the wife, I tried to keep my emotions out of my words. When I looked up, everyone was covered in grief and resentment. My wife was quietly crying. My parents-in-law were also crying. The other wife, biting her lip, looked for a place to put her anger. My subordinate said, "It's over. It's over. It's all over." He sounded like a broken radio. "No, I'm the one who's over," I wanted to scream, but then I remembered I have a daughter. Maybe I'm the happiest person in the world. I then told my wife and the spouses that all future negotiations would be through my lawyer. I told them that we had a child and that I wanted us both to make amends and make a fresh start. After that, I told the other wife, "I am truly sorry. If there's anything I can do, please let me know." But then she said, "Even if you atoned for me, what do you expect me to do?" I didn't know what to say. I still sometimes wonder what would have been the best way to handle this. If it weren't for the kids, maybe it would have ended differently, but no matter how many times I think about it, this is how it ended. By the way, I wasn't worried at all about my daughter's seriousness. I knew that there was no guarantee that I would win, but I believed that my daughter's will would be important because of the circumstances. Later that day, after the wife and I had cooled down, we had a meeting with our respective lawyers and again decided on alimony and other matters. I decided to charge my wife the same amount of alimony and property division and offset it against the property division. We decided to discuss separately the matter of having her raise someone else's son for 6 years. As for my subordinate, since he was fired from the company after I reported the incident, I decided to demand $5,000 for alimony, and instead, I asked my wife to pay $80,000, which was the amount I should have charged her. The custody of their children was set to the wife, and the child support was set at $500 a month until the child turned 22 years old. And, accepting our wishes, my wife and co-worker said they would remarry as soon as possible, start a family, and recognize their son as their own as soon as the procedures are completed. These were the terms of the settlement, and since they both agreed to this, we filed for divorce, and that was the end of it. I was able to make a good living on my own, and I was more concerned about my daughter's mental health. I thought it was more important for my daughter's mental health that I not get involved with my ex-wife anymore, so I only asked for the bare minimum to prove her culpability. I thought that was the end of it, and that I could go on with my daughter's life in peace. But then, a few months later, my ex-wife and son suddenly came to my house. "I'm struggling to survive with alimony payments and child support. I don't love him, but I married him because that was the condition of the settlement, but I can't do it anymore. Please help me." That's what she told me. And then, there was my ex-son, whom I barely remember talking to. "I hated you because you were mean to my mom. But please help me because it was a mistake," he said to me. I had never been mean to my ex-wife, and I wondered what he was talking about. I was not happy at all to see them both, looking pretty down and out. I felt nothing but discomfort. My daughter was standing behind me. "You're a miserable mother and son." I can't even argue with her. I think it's very unreasonable for my ex-son, but I can't help it if my feelings don't move me. My ex-wife seemed shocked by my attitude and left with my ex-son, and she never visited me again. So my daughter and I finally got our quiet life back. My daughter is studying hard to enter the university of her choice, and we both share the household chores. For my daughter's birthday this year, we decided to go on an overseas trip to take a break from her studies. My daughter and I are enjoying our life. We make a list of things to take with us. Go shopping together. It's a small thing, but I'm planning to have more fun like this in the future. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. We look forward to seeing you again. Please subscribe to our channel.